welcome to the final F16 stick video. This is it. I just have one question for you. The question is, do you like fighter jets? Is that what you're into? Are you into fighter jets? Because if you're into fighter jets, this is the last video you can possibly have. All right? So let's do the bourbon. Took me 2 hands to get the cap off, so I had to cut the video. But today we'll be drinking Booker's Little Book. This is chapter... there it is. 6? Chapter 6. I got a pretty good deal on it. I don't remember what I paid. I think like 130, which is, that's pretty much the MSRP. It's not terrible as far as price goes, but it's quite a very, very, very good bourbon. This is only my second glass of it. I bought it, tried it, and then didn't touch it again because it's quite hard to find. But, since this is the last F16 stick review, I think it's worthy. Cheers, guys. It's almost a little meaty. Almost tastes like it's got oil in it or something. It's hot. It's very hot, just like regular Booker's is. But anyway, back to my original question. Do you like fighter jets? Because this is it. It's a real F16 stick. Well, not exactly. It's a real F16 stick insofar as all of the parts in it are real. The shell is a Tianhang shell. It's actually an A10 one because this is for my A10 simulator. And this cap and this cap are 3D printed, but the rest are real. That is to say, there's a real auto button, real auto button, real auto button, real auto 5-way, real auto 4-way, real auto 4-way, a real trim hat, A10 variety, not the F16 variety, and a real auto trigger. So the reason I ask, do you like fighter jets, is because some of these switches are better than what you can get on other commercial offerings, and some are not. So let's do it Garand thumb style and go tip to butt. So at the very, 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 the butt, I guess. We're gonna start at the butt. You're gonna need a plug that can connect to the Thrustmaster. The 5-prong one is pretty much ubiquitous at this point, but the paddle, and by extension the pinky, because they're both the same kind of switches. These buttons are, they're like fidget spinners for airplane nerds. God, they're awesome. I've never felt a button anything quite like that. And I'm not saying that just because they're real or anything like that. They really are absolutely delightful. Moving up the stick, we have the CMS. Now, I don't know if you can't buy the caps or they're prohibitively expensive, but I 3D printed this cap. So forward, aft, left, right. So the real mil spec, it's an auto. God, if Jackson were here, he could rattle off the alphanumeric code for it. And I'm sure he's watching this video and saying it out loud at the video right now, but it's a TP, so I don't know. He'll probably comment it. Anyways, besides the point. The point is, the only difference you can tell with this 5-way hat is that it's kind of mushy, almost feels mushy like the Thrustmaster, but the difference is the throw is much farther. It's a much, much farther throw. And the click is really not spectacular. Moving up, I guess the trigger is the next thing. The closest thing to the military trigger is actually, first place would be Tianhang and second place would be Winwing. I actually like the Winwing trigger more than the mil-spec trigger and the Tianhang trigger, which is a little awkward, but it sometimes do be like that. Now, the most heartbreaking part, the TMS and the DMS. Now, I have a rather longer extension on my DMS because I like big throws on my switches, but the TMS and the DMS, you can kind of hear them clicking, but they're kind of mushy, almost like the Thrustmaster is. It's disappointing, but again, do you like fighter jets? Because if you like fighter jets, that's what's real. Coming up to the pickle and the master mode, delightfully clicky, just like the pinky and the paddle is. And then last but certainly not least, the hat. So the difference between the A10 hat and the F16 hat is the F16, this like bezel around it is rounded, and the A10 one is flat. So this stick's kind of a bastard because the A10 doesn't have the paddle, but this is definitely an A10 trim, so otherwise it would just be identical to an F16 stick, except the CMS in the F16 doesn't have a depress, so it's more to the A10 side, but the trim hat is amazing. The way it feels, I just can't even describe it. It is so tactile and clicky. So, do you care that much? How much do you care? That's what it all comes down to, because these switches are not cheap. I had Jackson wire this one up for me, but do you like fighter jets? Because if you like fighter jets, you want the most realistic thing possible at all costs. So we're gonna break this down two ways. The first way we're gonna break it down is if you don't wanna spend the money on all the mil-spec switches, I will tell you what switch from what company is the closest to mil-spec, and then I will tell you if you don't want to spend all the money on the mil-spec switches and you want what I think feels the best, my personal preference, like if I worked for Raytheon or Boeing, if I worked for Boeing, or if I worked for General Dynamics or Lockheed Martin or whoever, what switches I would prefer as a pilot, I'll tell you. So, the buttons. Let's start with the buttons, because this, and this are all pretty much the same. All the difference is the color. The buttons, the closest thing I would say is the Tianheng. Now, the Tianheng buttons are actually harder to push than these are. These aren't that difficult to push in, and they're way more clicky than the Tianheng buttons, but they feel great. Closest button, Tianheng. Moving up for the trigger, closest trigger, also Tianheng. Now, this is the part that's going to break my heart and makes me want to pull my fucking hair out. I've cursed all video except for now. It wants to make me pull my fucking hair out. The closest CMS, TMS, and DMS, honestly, drum roll please, it's Thrustmaster. It's Thrustmaster. I was hanging out with my friend who flies F-16s a couple of days ago, and he said he had the Thrustmaster replica stick, and he said he couldn't tell a difference between the Thrustmaster stick and his real F-16 stick, and I immediately called him out. I'm like, bro, come on, no way, no, I've felt mil-spec switches. The Thrustmaster switches are hot fucking garbage. They're terrible. And he's like, really? They feel kind of realistic to me. And now that I have real mil-spec switches in my stick, can confirm the Thrustmaster switches, at least for these three right here, are the same. The trim hat, closest thing, Tianheng. The trigger, closest thing, Tianheng. I'm not sure if I said that or not, but the first click is like, it almost feels like an arcade. And then the second one, the closest thing I've ever felt to that is a staple gun. It's the weirdest thing. It feels like a fucking staple gun, but that's what it is. Now, let's do it again. We'll go butt to tip again, and we'll go, I've already lost track of if I did the realistic one or the one I prefer. Let me go back and rewatch. All right, so we're gonna do it again. We'll go butt to tip again. But this time I will tell you what my favorite switches are. Well, that is to say, favorite if they aren't mil-spec. So, let's have to have a sip here. As the ice starts to melt, this bourbon opens up. It tastes more cinnamon, less fishy and meaty and savory, and it gets a little sweeter, and a lot sweeter actually. So, a little bit of water or some slow melting ice, perfection. Anyway, let's start over again. The buttons, if I had to pick my own buttons and I couldn't pick mil-spec, because the mil-spec buttons really are the best, I'd pick Tianheng buttons. They're harder to press, but honestly, they feel the best. The CMS, TMS, and DMS, I actually like the Tianheng because they're very clicky. They click into place, like almost like the trim hat does. But the reason why the switches in the mil-spec jets aren't as clicky as Tianhengs, I'm guessing, is because of dust-proof, waterproof, oil-proof, sealing, vibration-proof, all that crap, which is probably why these are so mushy and crappy, is because they're designed to, you know, have a 30 millimeter shaking the whole aircraft, and they're going to stand through that, where Tianhengs are obviously made to just, you know, be in a simulator, maybe survive a vibrating chair, but certainly not a 70 bullet a second, 30 millimeter autocannon like the A10 has. So if I could pick these three right here, I would take the Tianheng ones, and honestly. Subsequent simulators, I'm not going to put mil-spec switches in all my simulators, but subsequent simulators, I'm definitely going to use Tianheng hats and switches because they're great. The trigger, I've already told you, this will come as no surprise. I like the Windwing trigger the most. I don't know if it's possible to fuck a Windwing trigger into a stick like this, but the Windwing trigger is absolutely supreme. Then that leaves the hat. The mil-spec hat really is the fucking best part. There's something about it. I don't even know what. The hat just feels so good. But I guess if I couldn't have a mil-spec hat, I'd take Tianheng. So that really kind of reinforces what I've been saying all along from the beginning of my videos when I was reviewing all these sticks is if I could pick just one stick, would it be the Cougar or the Thrustmaster? Well, the Cougar is a Thrustmaster. Well, the Cougar or the Warthog or the Windwing or the Tianheng, I would pick the Tianheng every single time, all day long. The only thing the Tianheng kind of fails at is the trigger. The Windwing trigger is a little better, but other than that, the switches are great. Even Realism, the Realism switches are too light and they're clicky, but they're too, I don't even know how to say. They're like flimsy. I don't know. Well, for starters, the DMS cap broke on my fucking Realism, so jot that down. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. Oh, so that reminds me, Tianheng, I think a couple of days ago actually, is now selling his stick with auto switches installed. Now, I don't know if he's actually bolting real auto switches into his shit or if he has successfully copied the auto switches such that they are indistinguishable from mil-spec stuff. I would not be surprised at all if Tianheng dissected military switches and was able to copy them perfectly, because he's pretty much done that with the trigger. But there's an auto version of Tianheng's stick now. So do you like fighter jets? Buy that one. If you're not high functioning autistic like I am, you might want to go with something that feels a little better. Like my A10 throttle, for example, the coolie hat's really mushy and the radio hat's really mushy, because that's the way the mil-spec stuff is. I almost wish I had Tianheng 5-ways in those two, but again, I like fighter jets and I want the most realistic thing, even if it's not the best thing. So that's what I have. So anyway, knock on wood here, but this should be the last stick review video I ever do until some new player comes on the game. But you can't get better, you can't get more real than the real thing. So if your objective is realism, you've got your work cut out for you. If you are subjective, like my friend Terry, he likes a really, really light touch on all of his flight sim gear, but that's not realistic because the real stuff is, it's like 40 pounds to move an A10 stick, man. They're really heavy, and I've flown the real military A10 simulators back when I was Russian Air National Guard units in my 20s. It all comes down to preference. I'm not going to fault you if you like Wingwing the best. I'm not going to fault you if you don't care about having auto switches in your stick. Do what makes you happy, man. Just fly the goddamn simulator. Blow stuff up. Fly a fat fucking pig full of bombs and fly your F-16, fly the wings off of it, do 10 Gs, overstress your aircraft. Have a good time, man. That's what it's all about. To me, realism is fun, but that's not everybody. Some people like Ace Combat. Some people like War Thunder. That's cool. It's no big deal. Do whatever makes you happy, but if you're autistic, like me, and you want the most realistic thing, there you go. That's it. So, do you like fighter jets? Thanks for watching my video. I don't give a fuck if you like or subscribe. Talk to you next time.